Hey guys, what is up? AwesomeTheSauce here. Hope you guys are having a wonderful day, and today we're gonna be talking about Dragoon gear. Now I know you see me looking kind of swag with that hat and everything, and you guys might have seen me PvP. You might have seen that I've actually collected quite a bit of Dragoon gear over the months and almost a year since the update dropped. I'm making this video because of what Dragoon gear really represents, and what it really is. For anybody who's unfamiliar with Dragoon gear, it's basically the best example of end-of-game content that we currently have in the game. Here, whether you're talking about the theme that I'm rocking, whether you're talking about the amulet, the boots, not only is it just 130 gear specifically, so that's already end-of-game content, but the way that it's made, it actually is designed so that there's an encouragement to actually get the Dragoon gear, specifically just because the set bonuses. So this is like probably the only thing that you don't have to pay money for, where you actually, if you get many pieces of it, you'll actually get extra stats. So for many reasons, this is probably the most important form of end of game content. Now I know you're reading the title and you're probably wondering, well, what do I have against this? Well, to begin with, I don't think it's a terrible thing. I actually love Dragoon gear for some reasons, but I do think that it got a lot of things wrong, and that's why I'm making this video. So without further ado, let's talk about what Dragoon gear got wrong. I think the first problem that I would have to say is that in trying to make the entire way of getting gear a little bit more consistent, I feel like they kind of made it too much of a grind. Now, what do I mean by that? I'm talking about the fact that Dragoon gear, for all intents and purposes in this game, it's basically the only way you can get it is by crafting it. Now, when we're talking about crafting it, this is not a joke. Look at this. Look at like for something like the boots. You need 300 extracts, 50 salts, and 5 crystals, along with the version of the boots that are slightly worse. Now, if you want that slightly worse version, you also gotta craft that by, you know, getting another 180 extracts, another 30 salts, another 3 crystals. Now, this is a problem for two big reasons. Eventually, what's going to end up happening is that there will be a really fast way to do it, which right now will basically just involves the abandoned backyard. That's what everybody farms now, and everyone just does that, and it becomes just a grind where you keep on doing the same dungeon over and over again. And something else that I'm pretty concerned about is the fact that members benefit a lot from double reagents in a way that other players don't. And what it does is create almost an invisible type of paywall for people who want to PvP without buying membership. And by the way, if you are interested in PvP, I cannot tell you how much of a difference stats from Dragoon gear make. Let's take a small look at my Fire Wizard real quick, and you'll see the point I'm trying to make. So right now, this Fire Wizard, right, he's wearing the Vanguard hat, so it's not the Dragoon version. I'm wearing the turquoise robe, I'm wearing the Dragoon boots, and I'm wearing the Dragoon thing. By not having the Dragoon hat for the set, right, if you look at it, I am missing out because you can't do any gear set with Vanguards, but you can do it with Dragoon gear. I'm missing out on 7 damage and 140 pip conserve just off of the fact that I don't have the upgraded version of this, even when I already have 2 pieces of gear that are Dragoon. I've already put in literally thousands of reagents into just this one character, and in terms of PvP, I do not have the ability to get that 8 extra damage, because if I upgrade the hat, I'll literally get 8 extra damage. So when you're looking at PvP, you're looking at how much of an impact it makes. I think it's actually pretty unfair that basically the only way to get it is through crafting, and if you're a member, you will be able to craft it more easily just off of double reagents. Now, I understand maybe making Dragoon gear a little bit less, like, you know, easily accessible, like when the update first dropped, but I really think they should, like, you know, make it a little bit more lenient. Like, I know that they put out the Fell Spawn boss, but that has no consistency to it. Now, if you guys have done any of the Catacombs bosses, I think you would agree with me that the drop rates for the Vanguard's gear itself is extremely low. And just so you guys know, I've actually farmed the boss itself for the Abandoned Backyard boss, which drops Vanguard's hats hundreds and hundreds of times. So I thought I would make this video after doing a lot of farming to really get a good idea on how common the drops are. Now, after getting about 3 pieces of Dragoon gear's worth of gear on almost all my wizards, we're talking literally thousands and thousands of reagents. After getting all of that from that dungeon, I have gotten 3 Dragon Spire Vanguard helms, I've gotten 3 other Vanguard helms. That's it. I've gotten 6 Vanguard hats after hundreds and hundreds of runs, thousands and thousands of reagents worth. If I really had to do the math out, I would say it's easily in the 400 to the 500 range. And that means a drop rate for a hat from that boss is probably going to be around 1 to 2%. Obviously, there's a chance I got unlucky, but normally when you do a boss a repeated number of times and you get, like, you know, a certain number of things, you start to get a hang of the drop rate. I like that Felspawn drops Dragoon gear, but I think the drop rate on regular pieces of gear is so low, on bosses especially, that are extremely hard, that it makes no sense that they don't drop Dragoon gear too. I still have the Devourer quest, because it's just a very, very hard boss. You need a very coordinated team. It's very difficult to do it right. This boss itself, if you do it and you don't get any gear, you'll just be lucky to get a few crystals or some salt or some extracts. And even if you get really lucky, after hours of doing this, you will only get a Vanguard ring. You won't even get the Dragoon ring. I find it pretty crazy that you can do the Felspawn boss for a random chance of getting any piece of Dragoon gear, and yet you can do the Devourer and you'll get a random chance of getting Vanguard stuff. It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't think that's, like, you know, a proper translation of time that you spend and the reward that you get. So just off of the fact that the drops themselves don't make sense coming from different bosses, and the fact that members have such an advantage doing this, I think Dragoon gear should definitely be dropped by different Catacombs bosses. That would make every Catacomb boss actually worth farming instead of literally making all of them irrelevant. And it would make Felspawn something you go to if you have like 7 characters, but it would make the other bosses something much more worth going to if you need something specifically for your character. What bothers me the most is that these 3 bosses are actually some of the most well-designed boss fights in the entire game. Because some bosses, like the Devourer, actually will not give you the same battle every time. It's very hard to consistently do this boss. So for this drop table to be this underwhelming is ridiculous. The Renegade Druid boss is also really, really dope. Not only do you have to make sure that you like kill all the minions in a way that makes the battle easier, there's also like very few strategies that makes this work. This is a very frightening boss. This man can one-shot you if you're not careful. It takes a lot of coordination. The Valencia boss, Sathish, this one's really cool because it makes a bunch of clones of the people in the battle, and because of the way that the clones are made, it's very, very hard to do this in a time-efficient way. What all of these bosses have in common is that, one, they're great examples of endgame content that keeps a game fresh and exciting, and yet all of them seem like a lost opportunity. I think you could easily make it so that the grind of the game and the fact that people who have membership have it so much easier when it comes to crafting these, you could solve both of those problems if these very hard bosses have a 1 to 2% drop rate for Dragoon gear. Honestly, the reason why I say this is because the Felspawn boss, the problem is that it can drop any piece of Dragoon gear, and these actually have some level of specificity, which is really nice. And unlike the Dragoon dropping boss, which is Felspawn, these actually drop reagents, and they have like, you know, little fights where they drop reagents sometimes too. So at least you're getting a little bit of progress done, and you might get that jackpot. You know what I'm saying? You might get a Dragoon piece. I just think that we need that. I don't see why. Otherwise, why would anyone do these bosses? For a small chance of getting Vanguard gear? Like, it's not worth it. I wanted to make this video because I've been really getting Dragoon gear on every wizard, and it's at this point, all I'm really doing is just the same thing over and over again. And it's an utter waste of what this entire dungeon is. I think this dungeon, I wish I had an incentive, is what I'm saying, to do these 3 bosses. They are a lot of effort. Why am I not being rewarded for it? As a closing note, I think the Felspawn boss is one of the most depressing things to do because it literally gives you nothing most of the time. If you happen to get Dragoon gear, the odds that you get what you need specifically because of the entirety of Dragoon gear being in the drop table, that's also very low. I have 6 wizards on this account, and the other day I got a Dragoon amulet for Myth. And the one wizard I don't happen to have on this account is a Myth wizard. And even if I'd gotten it, I had already crafted it on the Myth. It was kind of the worst experience after doing like 25 runs of Felspawn. I think craftable gear made it so that you didn't feel like you were grinding so much for a lucky drop. But what it ended up doing by not taking advantage of all the variety in this dungeon is it just made it into a grind that for people with multiple wizards is an endless one. That is why I think Dragoon gear got it a little bit wrong, my mans. I don't know if y'all agree. Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear y'all's opinion. Drop a like if you enjoyed. Leave a sub if you're new. There's tons of links in the description. Share your opinion in the comments. I'm gonna read all of them. And as always, if somebody hasn't told you you're awesome today, they doing something wrong. So stay awesome. And yeah.